What is it like to have children you don't want? I think this is a conversation that more women should have. You are close to being burned at the stake if you confess that actually if you could turn back the clock, you wouldn't have children. I feel that these conversations may stop perpetuating this idea that, 1, if you're a woman you will automatically adore your children, 2, you have more options than just having children. Women do also go through things such as PND, and maybe others talking about it won't make them feel so guilty and alienated. I love my son. Yet, if I could go back in time and not have children then I would. I was not prepared for a child, even though I worked. We planned this pregnancy. I was not prepared for how much I'd lose myself and my whole identity. I was not prepared for the sleep deprivation, the constant screaming, the colic. I think overall I had a very bad experience. I was very sick after having a baby. I will never let my son know this, I will never let my son feel he is unloved or unwanted. It was not his choice to be born. I'm speaking from personal experience with my son and this may be a long one. I never wanted to have kids. It seemed like way too much responsibility for someone like me. I work, I pay bills, I am responsible, but I can only handle so much responsibility. I felt like kids would push me over that line where happiness would disappear, and to be honest, I was right. It did in fact disappear. My son was born a little over a year ago. He wasn't planned. My wife and I welcomed him into our lives with open arms. We loved and cared for him, and still do, and we are trying our best to provide him with a great life. But for me, doing everything I can to provide him with a great life is, in essence, sucking my soul out of me. As time went on, and as it goes on, I become more and more depressed, anxious, and phobic about things in life that I used to seemingly love. I've went from this super cheery and outgoing individual to a husk of what I was. But my son doesn't know how I feel. When he's in the room, everything is well. It isn't fair to him that I take out my personal demons on him. I love him so much I can't explain it in words. He's a hilarious little kid, he's adorable and incredibly smart, but the responsibility of him is tearing me apart. I hope as he grows older and starts to become more independent, I'll start to feel better, but for now it's like the weight of the world on me. My girlfriend had a 2-year-old when I met her. He's 5 now. I didn't plan to have kids, but I love her. I'm pretty much used to it. I teach him stuff and he's attached to my hip when he's here, joint custody with the father, but ideally I'd have preferred to not have a kid around. I can deal with it though. He can be a little butthole sometimes. Also it's weird disciplining someone else's kid, so I'm just getting there. I can see the betrayal in his eyes. I'm supposed to be like the fun uncle, getting onto him is weird. Never really said that out loud. This is liberating. I have 3, a girl and twin boys. I really thought I wanted kids because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. Be a wife and have kids. I love them, and I want the best for them. But I don't have the same connection to them that other moms seem to have. I don't miss them when I have to go on a long trip, I just feel relief. Having them home because of the pandemic has been really hard for me. I have a lot of guilt about it. I don't withhold affection or anything, but I'm not a naturally affectionate person. My husband is. I feel pretty lonely and left out when they're playing together. I feel like I don't belong. It's a weird dichotomy. I don't really know. Even though I'm surrounded by family, it feels pretty damn lonely. I don't feel like I belong in my own life. I fantasize about taking off alone and living somewhere by myself. But I don't want to mess them up like that. They're innocent and don't deserve it. So I do my best, and hope I'll be alive in 10 years to be alone again. I have custody of my brother's kids. I didn't want them. I already have one of my own. My brother's kids are not as well behaved as my children. It is very frustrating. I love them. I will protect them and take care of them. I find myself very upset by the fact that I just can't seem to love them as much as my children. It's depressing. I hate myself because I feel this way. I wish it was just my children a lot of the times. My brother's kids put a strain on my marital relationship, because they act out so much. My brother is homeless and an addict, with really no hope of him getting better. I just wish it would go back to a family of 3. 7 is just too much for most things. Want a regular-sized vehicle with smaller monthly payments and lower insurance? Nope, gotta have something that seats 7 or more. Holidays? Gotta plan on a family size of 7 instead of 3. It's frustrating. I try so hard to not let my nieces and nephews see that I struggle with this. But kids are smart and I know they pick up on this. I hate that I can't just be happy with this. At least for their sake. Can't talk to family about it. I'm this hero who took the kids so they wouldn't end up in foster care or group homes. But I'm really not a hero. I stepped up because no one else would, but I don't think I'm cut out for it. A very close friend has 2 children, 6 and 2, but really because her husband wanted kids and she knew he'd leave her if she stood her ground on not wanting kids. She loves her kids with all her heart, but misses the life she could have had without them. Aside from work, just started her residency, all she does is being MM. She has little to no time for her own hobbies anymore, and misses that a lot. I can't say if the kids notice that, at their age, but I worry they might, at some point, or that she'll one day just crack and resent either her kids or her husband for taking that child-free life from her. When you have a kid you kinda get this idea in your head on how things are gonna be. How you're going to teach them things, share special moments as they learn and have this cool amazing bond. Then your kid comes into this world and is not at all what you expect. My kid is special needs and has major developmental delays. He's 2 and basically just lives in his own world. Doesn't communicate, doesn't respond to his name and has basically missed every single milestone out there. So you feel regret, despair, and a whole bunch of other negative stuff. Especially guilt. It wasn't his fault he came into the world this way. He didn't ask to be here. So there's a lot of complex emotions going on. However bad it makes me feel though, I just kind of wish he didn't exist. For instance, as I was writing this, I went to the bathroom and in the 3 minutes I was gone he took a dump, forced both his hands into his diaper and smeared poop all over his face and pinned everywhere else. Now my whole apartment reeks and I had a half hour of cleanup because I left my toddler alone for all of 3 minutes. This isn't the first time this has happened. I just can't connect with him and it has me feeling like I'm just his caretaker rather than his dad. It set the tone for the rest of my life. I honestly believe if D never had a kid, particularly as young and alone as I was in a very socially backwards area, I'd have made a lot more of myself. I know that could be taken as self-rationalization for lack of trying and failures. But I also know how I felt, how I have never bonded with my kid, and how both our lives could have been a lot better had I either waited to have her, or let another couple adopt her like I wanted but was forced out of the choice. Ex-girlfriend baby trapped me. She stopped taking her birth control and didn't tell me. Then cheated on me while pregnant. She was, and still is a bad person. At that point I wanted nothing to do with her and was not prepared to be a father. I was young and dumb and still learning who I was and what I wanted to do with my life. She gave me the option to walk away and never see the kid again. I thought about it but couldn't bring myself to, knowing my kid was out there was going to weigh heavily on my conscience. It was difficult at times. While my friends were studying, partying, traveling I was working and learning to be a father. I didn't want this kid but here I was and I was going to make the best of the situation. My daughter is 13 now and I have full custody. Her mother is a piece of well. And my daughter is old enough to know the difference. She's with me now and I couldn't be happier. My daughter is a driving force in my life. I need to be responsible, I need to be accountable, I need to be financially successful. It keeps me going forward and has really made me the man I am today. Having a kid when you're barely 20 has ways of making or breaking someone. My daughter was the child I didn't want but ended up being what I needed. I was a nanny for a lady who really didn't want children but needed up having 5 because she loved her husband. Each of her pregnancies her medical condition went worse. With her youngest she had to be in the hospital for 2 months because she had so many kidney stones. Part of her condition is she produces kidney stones at a crazy rate, and they are rare stones that have a hook on them. Her kidneys are also more like a sponge-looking organ than kidney, that aren't functioning over 25%. She would give her life for those kids even though she never wanted them. The sad part, when the youngest was 2, her health was declining a lot. And her husband left her for a chick he just met because, and I quote, "I'm sick of you being sick. I miss those kids so much and I miss her." She got full custody and has even better insurance now that her ex left her. And he pays huge in child support and alimony every month. I helped raise my ex's 4-year-old until she was about 7. I never got used to it. Yes, I loved her very much and would do anything for her. I just couldn't deal with the crying and lack of sleep and being disobedient. Every time I wanted to do something like play a game, go to the bathroom or have a conversation with her mom she always butted in. Also she was an only child and always wanted me to play dolls with her or something. I just couldn't handle someone needing my attention like that all the time. Call me selfish. I went from being single for years to being daddy. I just realized I can't do it. A girl I worked with had a 5-year plan. Get a designer man, have a massive wedding, travel to fancy hotels and have a baby. She managed it all except the baby. 2 years of IVF later and still no baby. After a long adoption process they get a 6-month-old. 3 months later they give him back and divorce. She realized that she had only wanted a baby because that's what people did and that meant she was successful. She had never thought about what having a baby meant and what it would do to her perfect life. The husband couldn't live with what she had decided, so left. Addie, the baby, went to a couple who did want him eventually, instead of staying with her. I have spoken with a woman who feels nothing towards her kids. She had them because that is what the church requires and her husband wants them. But I don't think it's just the kids. Even though she says she loves her husband, I don't think that's what she feels for him. She was picked on severely growing up and he is really good to her. I think it's thankfulness that she feels and confuses it with love. Anyways, she knows that it's wrong, her words, to not love her kids and decided to view parenting as a project with the best possible outcome as have her children grow into healthy, happy and well-adjusted adults. She did clarify that she doesn't hate them or resent them. After all, they were part of her life plan. So she made up a way following all the best parenting advice and making sure she follows through. For example, she keeps track of how often she cuddles them, by minutes noted in her journal, and if she notices that she hasn't been doing it a lot, she tries to correct it. She also leaves discipline up to her husband because she doesn't want them to associate any negative feelings towards her. She knows they'll eventually be able to recognize her lack of feelings towards them and will think her discipline came from a bad place. From what she told me, she has never explained any of this to her husband and he has no clue how she feels. This conversation lasted about 4 hours and was the moment I realized that you can choose to be a good parent or a bad one. Regardless of how you feel, it's never the child's fault and an adult is responsible for making up for what they lack.